In a world where the marks think they know better than the wrestlers and the bookers, the Fantasy Booking Institute exists to pretty much do exactly that. This is a visit from the FBI. Welcome to another visit from the FBI. I am your host, as always, Officer Mark Smarks, and I am joined by my partner in crime fighting, District Attorney Erwin Michael Keith Fabe. For those new around here, I always like to give a brief rundown of the layout of the show. Each week, we present a couple booking scenarios for the other to book. We have not discussed these fantasy booking cases, so our answers are going to be, entirely unrehearsed and off the cuff and improvised, and that can be weird sometimes and awkward, but it's always a lot of fun. It has been a hell of a week in professional wrestling, so we have an absolute plethora of options to talk about or to do. So because of that, without further ado, we're gonna get to the first one. So
hold on, wait. Before you do this, I gotta give you props on your multiple puns there. With a hell of a week, and this is off the cuff and sometimes can be difficult. What are you talking about? You have been vicious, brother.
Well, I'm not going to be so vicious this week. We've had with Hell in a Cell and AEW and NXT and the premiere of SmackDown last week, and even last week's season premiere of Raw, there's been a whole lot of fun stuff to go through, and so we do have a whole lot of options, but they're also to address the elephant in the room was the horrible ending to Hell in a Cell, which I am certain will come up someplace in this conversation.
I feel like that's an indicator that you've got something coming for me on that.
It might be. Nudge nudge, wink wink. But because of that, I'm going to try to keep at least my options for at least some of these a little bit more positive. And I mean, I am sure on the wrestling booking unit later this week, we will go into the Hell in a Cell a little bit more hardcore.
A plethora of negative.
Yeah, plethora of negative on that one. But so because of that, we're going to go to case number 1. DA Fabe, your choice. You have choices. Choice 1 or choice 2. Make your pick.
Oh, I don't get to know the choices?
Nope. This is a blind pick.
Okay. Choice 2?
Choice 2. Good choice. So, what your case tonight is, I want you, with the advent of AEW Dynamite last week and the crowning of the inaugural Women's Champion for AEW, I want you to book the AEW Women's title picture for the foreseeable future. You don't have to go a year out, but go out well past Full Gear, so that we've got like a serious long-term booking sort of feud. Okay. And I will say, surprise signings are allowed because this is fantasy booking. If there's a person on another roster that you think belongs in AEW, go for it. We're gonna, we don't know anything about people's contract situations. We are entirely outsiders on that conversation.
Oh, so you're even saying like I could have Shayna Baszler come over?
You sure could. I mean, arguably speaking, her contract, we don't know. It could have been a 5-year contract, could have been a 3-year contract. If it was a 3-year contract, it'd be pretty close to up. We don't know. So this is where you get to have a little fun with this. How do you want the women's title picture to go?
Well, I think there's an obvious position right now. I'm gonna hold myself a little bit accountable here and not have outsiders per se, with the exception of Kylie Ray, because whatever made her choose not to be part of AEW may very well come back. I mean, at the end of the day, Pac chose not to be part of AEW for a couple shows was all. That said, I'm going to start with right now. We've got, we just finished the Nyla Rose versus Riho match. Riho won in a surprise. I truly feel that the commentator had to be thought about there. We don't have Britt Baker special guest commentate for no reason. And I think most people would agree with that. That said, I believe that Nyla is going to say, I destroyed you the whole match. I deserve another shot. And I think our number one contenders match is probably going to be Britt versus Nyla. And it'll probably be, I think it'll be addressed either on Being the Elite or on the show or Dark, AEW Dark, within the next 2 weeks on which one of those two will be the number one contender. But I truly feel that Britt Baker is going to be the next title shot. There's something to be said for how well Britt performs in the ring. However, I am very proud of AEW for not putting the blonde bombshell on the first title because it was easy to do. So I feel like Britt Baker beats Nyla for a number one contendership. We might have another match there. We might have a guest signing like Rosemary or something come along. Oh man, I forgot one other that I would bring. Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and pretend that Emma's part of this too. Okay. Not Emma. Tenille. I apologize. Tenille Dashwood.
It's very plausible. So
and so I'm gonna book it all the way to Tenille, which is gonna be 4 or 5 title changes. So we're gonna have Britt win her number one contendership over Nyla. Nyla's very upset and starts going on a tear, but I think we end up with a Nyla versus Awesome Kong through that. Or Aja Kong, either one. And I think Riho beats Britt Baker in an absolute showstopper of a match. So Riho becomes the 2-time or the defending champion and actually defends successfully. I think the next move from there would be to have Aja or Awesome challenge. I think they're going to go big small with this. And I know that sounds messed up to say, but Aja and Awesome are enormous powerhouse characters, and they put on and quite frankly, if you look at any of their past matches, they put on a show in terms of showmanship, much like Nyla does. There's a lot of showmanship in all three of those. And we've had a lot of times in history where larger women did not put on that showmanship. So we have Britt get her win. We have Riho get a win over Britt Baker, which allows Britt Baker to have match with any number of characters. I feel like they're almost going with an authority figure angle eventually with Brandy, but I think it's going to be more of an authority. Brandy wants Awesome to destroy this person or that person. So I'm going to say the next challenger will be Aja Kong by surprising Awesome Kong in a match, and Aja Kong, and then we get a match that's happened in the past, which is kind of cool, but hasn't happened on AEW, and so then we get and I think that's where we take the title off of Riho. At which point we can have a smaller character, say Britt Baker, come out. And now she gets the title. She beats Aja Kong, and as Britt Baker holds it, the night she gets the win, I would say Tennille Dashwood shows up. And that's her contract night. We're talking probably January, February here sometime. And Tennille Dashwood, we get our bombshell match that Vince would want, but we have a bombshell match with actually talented bombshells. And so I think Tennille Dashwood gets it, and I think eventually just her abilities on the mic, her abilities to carry a character, whether it's the current Tennille Dashwood character, whether it's the Emma characters, the multiple Emma characters she's had in the past, I think says something. And I think Tennille kind of becomes the women's division of AEW's version of Stone Cold versus Brandy. I think eventually what we have is hopefully Brandy's skill gets good enough to, you know, or a minion or a group that she leads gets good enough to create a challenge for Tennille, because Tennille definitely has the charisma to pull off a Stone Cold-esque character. But that's where I'm going with it. And I don't want Brandy Rhodes to win the championship, but I think that happens.
I get it. Okay. Interesting you didn't put Allie anywhere in the mix.
Well, especially as much as I like her.
Yeah.
But I think Allie comes into play in the Brandy Rhodes saga more than it comes into play before Brandy Rhodes thinks she's going to push somebody else off. If we're going to, I mean, the booking for Brandy Rhodes seems to be going to I'm the boss, you know, like not I'm Sasha Banks the boss, but I'm the leader of this division, and so I'll do what I want to do. Which is a little WWE-esque, but I think they can do it different. I also think WWE hasn't really done it in the women's division with a wrestler. They've done it with Stephanie, but let's be honest about who Stephanie is. So, yeah, you didn't tell me to book all of the women's division at that time.
I just kind of figured Allie would be up there.
Well, yeah. Truth be told, I got so excited when I realized I could put Tennille Dashwood in. I forgot about Allie.
Yeah, no. The thing is, I'm just looking at the AEW women's roster right now, so that, you know, and I also
stacked. It's so stacked.
It is. Interesting to note that Aja Kong is not currently listed on their roster, so we'll see.
They really seemed like they were building a Aja versus Awesome feud.
And it could be that they just haven't worked out a long-term contract with her yet. Who knows? But I just noticed that, and I was like, interesting. But and we'll talk a little bit later about AEW Dark that aired tonight, because I know you didn't get a chance to watch it. So
I haven't a chance to do anything today.
Yeah. The life of a DA. Okay. But the excellent booking, I would enjoy seeing any of that happen. So, I think you got a good idea there. So.
Well, I told you I wouldn't do another seasonal one in September, and look, it's October. And the seasonal one I did in September. The seasonal one I did in September. If you guys want to go back and listen, I had Officer Smarks book a WWE Halloween style match, which will be terrible. It will when it happens, and it will happen. And now, because it is October, WWE really, really, really enjoys having characters that are based on monsters, air quotes there, to steal your line, Officer's Marks. By monsters, I mean characters like the Yeti, characters like Gangrel, Kevin Thorne's character, whatever it was, in WWE, where it was all white, but he was still a vampire of some type. So you also get a choice. You get to choose the monster type. I was going to force you to do a vampire, but you get to choose the traditional monster choice, but you have to book the person and the run of a successful monster character, because that's what they've never had, with the exception, I suppose you could say the Undertaker is, but he's not.
I hate you.
And you're up, and I'm gonna mute. I just want to sit back and listen.
Oh geez. Successful monster type. Oh, I've literally got my head in my hands right now.
Cliche. You have to make this cliche, because I don't think the Undertaker counts as a monster type. I don't think Kane maybe did, so you might have a story there already. But when you're talking Yeti or Giant Gonzalez, who was how was Yeti? Why was that his name? He was a mummy.
Well, I think it's because they didn't know how to do a Yeti without it looking worse than the mummy, to be perfectly honest. Like, Giant Gonzalez's costume looked horrible, and a Yeti costume would be a white version like that, and that would look even worse. So I think they booked themselves kind of into a corner, and then they're like, oh, what do we do? Wrap a guy in toilet paper and send him out there.
Wasn't Yeti WCW? He wasn't WWE. Yeah,
he was WCW. Halloween Havoc 95.
Just really bad. Really bad.
Comes out and dry humps Hogan for a while.
I promised I was going to mute, but I did want to clarify that I don't consider the Undertaker a monster, because it's not a traditional monster. Kane, you might be able to consider that, but you can go and I'll remute.
Okay. Well, I mean, I think just thinking about it, I think the monster you have to do is a werewolf. And the reason I think werewolf works so well is because you can do kind of a Jekyll and Hyde sort of character, similar to the Fiend, where he's a normal guy through much of the month, and then the monster comes out of him, and so at that point, then you've got the ability to do like the crazy stuff. So in a way, you could pitch it kind of like Finn Balor's The Demon, where he can be beat as himself, but when the wolf comes out, then he is basically unstoppable. Who I would put in the role is the tougher part, and I'm kind of looking through here, and I just it's got to be someone I've got faith in enough to pull off like this without it looking absolutely horrible. But it's also got to be someone that I don't like their character right now enough, because when they've got a great character right now, it would be the worst thing in the world to throw them that way.
Yeah, why would I guess theoretically the Fiend fits into this category, and I feel terrible for throwing him out, but I really wanted it to be traditional 1930s type characters.
So I think I know who I would choose. He's a little bit less known. He's an NXT wrestler who right now has only been on screen a little bit, and he's got a good look, and he's a decent wrestler all in all, but his character just doesn't kind of swing, you know what I mean? It's like he's shown up, he was in the breakout tournament and he lost in the first round and he went out, but Dexter Lumis, who used to wrestle under the name Samuel Shaw, which apparently is his real name. So, but you can do the Dexter Lumis character, and you could do it like like I say, like a Finn Balor sort of thing, where he comes out most of the time. He's a normal person. He can be beat, but then that one time of the month, the toughest thing about doing a werewolf character is getting around the whole full moon concept, because you can't book your pay-per-views based on the full moon, and so you can't. You have to come up with a reason that he can transform not in the full moon, and I think you can kind of lean on the brilliant and classic movie Teen Wolf.
I knew that was coming.
A bit, and pitch it that the moon plays into it, but his emotions can play into it as well. So when he gets really riled up, and a person pushes him to the limits, that's when the wolf comes out. And you can actually do it fairly easily without, like, the tough thing, you don't want to do anything like prosthetics anymore, just because they can come off and they can look bad and all that. But you could have him, he could grow his hair out, but normally wrestle with it pulled back into a ponytail or a bun of some sort. But when he's the wolf, you have the hair out of the bun and long and wild, maybe even gel it out a little bit so it's even wilder and looks crazy. There's a lot of fun stuff you can do with it, but I kind of think that's where I'd go with it. But I really hate you. I was being nice this week. I was being nice, and
I wasn't trying to be mean. I just, we have to have these seasonal ones once a month, and I wanted to beat you to the
have them ever.
I wanted to beat you to the punch. I mean, I could be nice and do like AEW's Halloween match. I just don't see them doing one.
Yeah.
I don't see them behaving that way. But we know there's going to be another monster. And how long did they push the whole vampire thing before they realized, yeah, this doesn't work in pro wrestling? But with yours, I'm most excited to see the crappy CGI transformation that they tried. Like, they tried it with the Fiend, and they tried it. Oh, do you remember? When Finn Balor did the that was so horrible.
Yep.
So bad. I was just like, why do you have to show an on-screen transformation? Why can't it just be that way that day?
So now the upsides with using Dexter Lumis, Samuel Shaw, is he was trained by Bubba Ray Dudley, Devon Dudley, and Mr. Hughes. So he's been trained by people who very well kind of embody the monster style of wrestling. You know what I mean? The big power moves, all that stuff. So if I had to do it, that's probably how I'd do it right now. But jeez.
I'm sorry. I apologize for next week in advance.
Yeah. You're gonna pay next week. You are gonna pay. But okay, so we're gonna move on.
Once upon a time. Wasn't there a wrestler that was like a Christmas tree once upon a time?
Yeah, I kind of blanked it out from my memory.
It was really short-lived and it was horrible.
Yeah.
Horrible. All right.
I'd like to take a moment to talk about our sponsor, Anchor.fm. Anchor.fm is by far the easiest way to make a podcast, and I know I'm fresh at this, brand new, and couldn't be simpler. Anchor gives you everything you need all in one place for free, which you can use right from your phone or computer. Anchor.fm, Anchor app on your phone. The creation tools allow you to record and edit your podcast, so it's going to sound great. You can even record with friends over the internet, which is what I do. Awesome. They'll also distribute your podcast for you, so it can be heard everywhere. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, many more, and they're adding more all the time. And they'll even help you with sponsorships, so you can easily make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. So, what are you waiting for? Download the Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started.
So, case number 3 for you.
Okay.
Going back to my hint from earlier, we know what craptastic show the ending of Hell in a Cell was. More specifically, the final match of Hell in a Cell, The Fiend versus Seth Rollins.
Okay.
So your challenge is to rebook that Hell in a Cell match in a way that would make the most people happy.
Can't be done. I don't know.
You're stuck with it. You got to figure it out. They booked you into this corner. There's going to be a Hell in a Cell match between The Fiend and Seth Rollins. It's going to be for the Universal Championship.
Okay, so it has to be for the title and everything.
Has to be for the title. It's the exact same setup. How do you book out of that corner that they booked you into?
You know, half the match was perfect. Well, more than half the match. I mean, I absolutely loved The Fiend taking the hits and bouncing up. I mean, it was. I mean, he's 6 stomps or 8 stomps in, and he's jumping up unlike Braun or Brock ever did. I mean, he's not even getting near falls. You know, they're not even getting covers. I would say the first just the match itself, the first 20 minutes are exactly what happened. Or, well, how long was it? 12 minutes total?
I don't even know. I've kind of blanked a lot of it from my memory.
It wasn't that bad. Stop.
10. It just was so tough to follow with the red light.
I'm not going to have it in red light. I thought I liked it at first. I think you can do a dark audience match and get the same effect like they started doing on the 3rd hour Raw at one point. I think that dark audience match is a good idea. So I think I start with the having the light, but shutting off the surround lights, kind of changing the atmosphere there a little bit. The cage itself was red. I don't think you needed red lighting along with it. I just think it was so over the top. I humbly don't believe you can have The Fiend lose this match because of where we're at with him. So I'm going to go ahead and say, you know, not only do I not have The Fiend lose the match, flat out, he can win. I mean, he can win by mandible claw. He can win by Sister Abigail. He can win by whatever. The level of beating that happened, I loved. I think you continue that. In fact, the bringing the whole toolbox in and hitting the chairs and everything, loved it. Loved the giant clown circus sledgehammer. God, that was awesome. Seeing that giant fake sledgehammer, I was like, this is so hilariously terrifying. You can even have Seth bring in Triple H's sledgehammer. But The Fiend has to be able to jump up from all of it and get the win. And, you know, if you could do it safely, have them swing the sledgehammers at each other and they strike, the sledgehammers themselves strike against each other. And, you know, just kind of a sledge versus sledge type thing, I guess. And at that point, then we go to The Fiend's just the darkest version of The Fiend and an unrelenting mandible claw. You can do match stoppage, which I think is what they said it was. Now it's not DQ, right?
Yeah, they said it was referee stoppage because he deemed that the Fiend was unable to compete anymore.
Well, I
Which
would do
makes
it
no sense because the Fiend sat back up and attacked him later. So
attacked him later. Yeah. I think I'd have the Fiend administer a mandible claw. Maybe Seth doesn't even tap out, but is unable to compete. At the end of that, the ref walks up to him, hands him his new title, and he knocks it out of the ref's hands and walks away. Because it was never about the title. And I think that's all you can do. And then you book into some type of tournament. Seth has prior advantage, home field advantage. You even book the Fiend in the tournament, and he just doesn't show up because he has nothing against Chad Gable in the first round of the tournament. So Chad Gable gets a forfeit win against the Fiend, but the Fiend didn't lose, type thing. Like, I'm not here for the title, so why are you putting me in this tournament? Or maybe even Brave shows up for that part, not the Fiend. Brave just shows up and he's like, "Oh, hey, friend." And he tries to shake Chad's hand. "No, I want to help you out." And he lays down for him, and something along those lines, where Bray is separate from the Fiend, much like your werewolf idea. And that's the way you put the title back on somebody. You can kind of build the title then, and you can build up other wrestlers. You don't have to have Seth Rollins the whatever Slayer each individual time. But yeah, I think you have Fiend win that title or win that match because it's a match he wanted, not because it's for the title. And then you just have him just knock the title out of the ref's hands like he didn't want it, or mandible claw the ref, or whatever. Like, why are you invading my space? And he attacks the ref. I don't care how they do that, but essentially have the Fiend vacate his one title. That's what I would have done differently.
Interesting.
And that gives you time to build all the way to all the way to Royal Rumble. You can have the final. You can have the final at. You can have the final at Survivor Series. You can have the final at what's this year's between Survivor Series and Royal Rumble? What are they doing this time?
I don't know.
Okay.
Give me a second.
Is it TLC or?
It typically was, but they've done some weird changes to the schedule.
Yeah. Anyway, it doesn't matter. And you can have that tournament go all the way through. I think you and I have talked about it before. I think at the end of the day, it is time to have a character who's less concerned with whether or not he has the gold. Even The Undertaker, had several stints in his career where he didn't care about being champion. He just was the champion.
Yeah, it's TLC. So
TLC. Okay. So you could have it end at TLC in a chairs match or whatever. You can build it however you want, because we all know that the next 2 weeks of building after the draft is going to be about how are we going to have Survivor Series go up these two shows against each other. By the way, in case anybody's wondering, expect SmackDown to fully dominate.
Oh, yeah. In fact,
one.
I was thinking about it, and I think they've actually, because they've known about this Fox deal for a while, I think they planned on it for years, because I think it's why they had Raw dominate the last 2 years, especially last year, where Raw got the quote unquote clean sweep because they didn't count the pre-show match that SmackDown won.
Oops, we didn't get the memo we were supposed to lose.
Yeah. So, but I think that was all about setting up this year for SmackDown to make a triumphant victory, because it's now the A show.
I think they knew that they were going to be selling SmackDown somewhere else, or at least giving SmackDown the option, and I think they had to keep USA a little bit happy there. So, but yeah. So I don't know that they knew it was going to Fox, though.
I don't think it was public, but you gotta say there had to have been backstage talking already, about it, and there was, in terms of the contract might not have been signed, but they knew it was a very, very likely
highly lucrative deal.
Yeah. Well, and very likely to happen. So they start planning it out a couple years in advance.
That Fox deal is almost as lucrative as going to Saudi Arabia, but you know about that.
Yeah. Yeah. Don't get me started on Saudi Arabia.
All right. So, shucks. You took my plan on the Fiend, but not really, because I feel like you're going to be really vicious next week, because I'm going to have you book fixing what happened on Sunday night, not fixing the match, but fixing after it. So the future part of this and how you make that right.
You don't. I mean, the real fix is a time machine. You go back in time, and like you were saying, I agree. We need to have a character who's not about the title, but you have to set that up in advance. So you couldn't have, having him just decline the title without any warning about it. Kind of feels a little disingenuous, but if you set it up a month in advance when they first challenge that I challenge you for Hell in a Cell, but I don't want your title, I just want your soul. Well, I can't use soul, I guess, because that would the Undertaker would be like, no, I eat his soul. But yeah, and then you just set it up that way, because if you set it up in advance that he doesn't care about the title.
Well, the sad part is they had all those opportunities to quickly take the title off Seth, just for a little bit. I mean, you don't have to take it off of him forever. We've talked about this before. WWE somewhere in the last 20 years has gotten the impression that somebody holding a title for a long time is a benefit. Mm-hmm. And we both remember a time when the title changing hands quickly gave more value to CM Punk. You blame CM Punk?
Yeah. Well, more specifically, CM Punk's really long title reign, his record-setting title reign. I think that the fans reacted so well to that, and they liked him as the champion for so long, that's where WWE got this idea that you have to have the belt on someone for a long time. Which is why they put it on Brock for so long. And you and I have talked about it, and we'll talk about it on a future episode too. Having it on Brock was not the problem. Brock is not the problem. To be perfectly honest, Brock being the champion is not the problem. It's Brock being the champion and never being there is the problem.
Yeah.
Right. Because Brock is wildly entertaining when he's on the show and he's killing people. Right. But the problem was that he had the title and he was never around, and not even just not defending it, just never around, right? You don't have to have it defended all the time, but you have to have it there all the time, or at least
every other week. Yeah.
Yeah. So back to your case here.
I feel like you just sidetracked the question.
But we could talk about Brock all night, and that would make me way happier than trying to fix this mess. But back to your question. Well, how they fix it, what they should have done was on the night of Hell in a Cell, they should have fixed it by making it a true double turn, right? Which I think might have been what they were kind of going for, but they didn't go all in on it. But you've got the Fiend.
All in is AEW.
Oh, true. They didn't put all their cards on. No, that's a gambling meme too. They didn't go whole hog with it. There we go, whole hog.
And they own WCW now, so yeah, you can do the hog reference.
Yeah. Except the Harley group will get angry. Anyways, but excuse me. But so what they should have done is gone all in on it with Seth just funneling into this darkness inside him. And they should have recognized that as much as they've been booking the Fiend to be a heel, a monster who comes in and destroys people, the crowd is behind him. The crowd is cheering for him, and they have been for a month or 2 months. You know, they had him take out Kurt Angle, who the crowd loves, and what did the crowd do? Cheered. Yeah. So at that point, they should have recognized that the Fiend is not a heel, at least not in the way that they want him to be. The Fiend is a face in the eyes of the crowd. And so the Hell in a Cell match, what they should have done is they should have booked it as a full double turn, where Seth goes fully dark and just beating, and even tries to chicken his way out of it, get out of the cell and walk away with the belt. You know what I mean? And the ref stops him and says, nope, no champion's advantage in this. You can't leave with the belt. You know, this match now is no disqualification. And then he goes back in. Of course, it always should have been no disqualification because it's a freaking Hell in a Cell match.
Correct. But I feel like you're rebooking the match and not fixing it now.
But my point is,
rebook the match.
So my point is, if they'd have gone all in on that, and they still can retroactively go in on it, right?
Yes.
But you go all in on it. You couldn't even retroactively do it. So you can have it end the way it did at the end. My point is, I don't think they're too into it now to fix it this way. But then on Raw this week, right, you have Seth Rollins come out now, the cocky heel champion, right? And you have him come out and talk about how I destroyed the Fiend at Hell in a Cell. I destroyed him. And the crowd would go, boo, because they hate that concept. And they'd say, you didn't destroy him. He still got up and mandible clawed you afterwards. So, and then he talks about, I'm the greatest champion ever. Not only did I destroy the Beast, I slayed the Beast, I beat the monster, I even slayed the King, right? I am the greatest champion ever.
King or the Fiend?
The King, going back to the Kingslayer, Triple H.
Okay, yep.
So you have him just go all in on this cocky heel champion character, which, let's be honest, you and I have said he's better at anyways.
Yeah.
And in many ways, it's what his persona is online anyways. If you read his Twitter feed.
Yeah.
More the way so you just have him go all in on it, right? And basically act like he destroyed the Fiend. And the crowd would be instantly against him. The Fiend would stay more over than ever, and you go in on that, and then you can have the Fiend come out and attack him again, and he uses some chicken way to get out again, maybe even this time throwing a referee in front of the Fiend or whatever. And so you can go in on this. You can let the Fiend be this monster face that we want to get behind, which in many ways Kane was that way. Like, he was originally booked to be this monster bad guy sort of a thing, and the crowd kind of loved him. And so
what we really loved was that he didn't talk, and I think that might be kind of where we're at with the Fiend. Bray Wyatt does all the talking for the Fiend, and I know that sounds stupid because they are the same person, but they are not the same character. Mm-hmm. I don't know that we've heard the Fiend talk other than occasionally on a vignette with "let me in," type thing.
he's done laughing, and he said a few things, but they were so hard to understand that I, like when he was attacking Braun during that match a couple weeks ago, he's saying something, but I couldn't really understand what he was. But that's my point. Yeah, you can have him be this quiet, but have him be this monster, but as the crowd favorite monster. And so then you start having him go after the other heels, right? So you could have him interject him into the Bobby Lashley thing where Bobby Lashley's out there making out with Lana and trying to make Rusev look bad, and then all of a sudden the Fiend comes and just mandible claws Bobby Lashley to the ground and then leaves. And because the crowd loves Rusev and Bobby Lashley's a heel, that would further cement. But I think the way you fix it to get to the end of this is you go all in on the Fiend is actually a face and Seth Rollins is the heel, and you let Seth Rollins be the heel, and then you book it up to a match at TLC. You could do a TLC match, which is effectively no disqualification.
They'd mess it up.
They would. If you do it for TLC, it's going to be after Survivor Series, which means we're going to have to see Brock versus Rollins again if they continue to book Raw versus SmackDown. Not looking forward to that, but...
I don't know that they'll book... I think they'll just have a traditional Survivor Series this year. The reason I think that is they've needed that for a while, where it was just a Survivor Series of this team versus this team. I'd love to see internals against each other, but we can worry about fantasy booking the entire show of Survivor Series, say next week or something. I don't know.
But that's how I would fix
forgiveness. Or I need to beg for forgiveness. I did think of one thing while you were talking, and this is just an idea. Because the Fiend is a character or a demonic possession, how cool would it be if, because Seth beat the Fiend, Seth became the Fiend? I think that's something they could do, and then all of a sudden Firefly Funhouse is with Seth, and all of a sudden Seth is wearing the costume. I don't know. Like, is that garbage?
I think the internet as a collective would flip their tables if they tried to do that. So,
I don't think Seth is the right guy to have that happen, but I didn't think he should have beat him anyways. But
so yeah. So now we've done how I would fix the mess, and it's putting a Band-Aid on the Hoover Dam right now. But
yeah.
But the better option would have been to go back in the beginning and
for both
not book them into a title match. You could still put them in Hell in a Cell, but you can either take the title off Seth in advance or have it not be about the title. I mean, if you make the Fiend or Bray Wyatt specifically say he's not interested in the title a month in advance, you set it up right off the bat that no, he doesn't care about that, and it's not a title match. And then you could have Bray beat the tar out of Rollins in the match and win, and the fans would be happy, and you don't have to worry about the title. They're just so worried about keeping the title on Rollins, who's their guy, that they made a stupid choice. And apparently backstage, Vince McMahon knew really quickly. But so now I figured we'd kind of go in. I know you said you didn't get a chance to watch Raw much yesterday, really busy, and then AEW Dark today, which is AEW's new show where they show the dark matches, the supposed dark matches, which I suppose they're not technically dark matches now that they're actually on a show, are they?
Well, they're internet-based only, though, so it's like watching...
They're still canon. Cody Rhodes has said these win-loss records will count, so...
So those matter. Cool.
Matter. Anyway, so on Raw yesterday, we talked a little bit about Bobby Lashley. He did another thing where He was already, apparently it started off, I missed the very beginning, but it started off with Randy Orton beating up on Rusev in the ring already, which was interesting that it started off with that. But then Bobby Lashley on the video screen, and he's making out with Lana in the bed, and Lana reveals that everything we know is now in my name, and the checking account is empty, so Rusev is now broke and alone. And then they go back to making out, and she makes it look like she's removing her tops under the sheet to go back to having sex with him. And then Rusev snaps and beats the tar out of both Randy Orton and Baron Corbin.
King Corbin, get it right.
King Corbin, yes. So that was actually pretty cool. And then I missed most of this match for obvious reasons. Last woman standing, Natalya versus Lacey Evans. But it ended with Natalya winning. So
how would you skip watching your two favorite characters?
Dinner ain't gonna cook itself.
Well, oh man, I could have just made something a really sexist remark, and I'm not gonna, but because I'm not really that sexist. But
then the Viking Raiders versus Dolph Ziggler and Robert Roode. The Raiders won, which should mean that they get a shot at the title belt soon. And then you had some vignettes a little earlier with Aleister Black backstage talking about how he's going to show off how good he is for the draft. And now he's going to go out and he's going to pick a fight with someone. And those someones were Sunil and Samir Singh. Because that's who we really wanted to see on Raw this week, was the Singh brothers.
Well, and interestingly enough, why do they pick a fight back when they're constantly running from everybody?
Yeah, I don't know. They did this whole, I mean, you and I don't follow 205 Live much, so apparently on that, they have this whole Bollywood gimmick where they've got a trophy that they claim is like the Bollywood version of an Oscar because they're Bollywood stars or whatever. I don't know. Anyways, they pick a fight with him and he destroys them. And I mean, I guess it's everything we want to see from Aleister Black, is him just come out and black mass people. So then you had a 6-man tag match, Lucha House Party versus the OC, which was fine, I guess. The OC won. The Lucha Botch Party did not botch too much, so that was cool, I guess. Then you had Miz TV with meeting of the champions, Charlotte Flair and Becky Lynch out there, and they were cordial to each other, and they were fine. And then
everything we don't like about Charlotte and Becky when they don't hate each other.
Yeah, I mean, they did have a little bit of tension back and forth, but then Asuka and Kairi Sane came out saying that Lynch and Flair aren't the most dominant competitors, and so they put together a match with the Kabuki Warriors versus Flair and Lynch, and the Kabuki Warriors won basically the same way they won last night with the Green Mist and everything. It was a pretty decent match. And afterwards, Alexa Bliss and Nikki Cross come out and beat up the Kabuki Warriors and chase them off. So cool. I guess they're going to continue that feud a bit. And I mean, it's nice that now that Bliss and Cross aren't the champions, they're not just okay. They're splitting up now. They're at least continuing that story.
Yeah.
And then you had Ricochet versus Apollo Crews, and it was a very, very short match. And Ricochet won, and it really didn't show off either of them very well.
That one I did get to see, but no, it didn't.
Yeah. And then Tyson Fury came out to demand his apology from Braun Strowman. I called him Big Show because he's now delivering the knockout punch, just like Big Show. Out of nowhere, the character who's never really been a punching character before just suddenly decided that I'm going to start throwing punches because I've got a feud to build with a boxing guy. Anyways,
and then it turned. I mean, are they building this like Mayweather and Big Show? Because this does not build the same way that Mayweather and Big Show did. Big Show was 450 pounds and 7 foot tall. Mayweather's 5'2" and $150 soaking wet.
Yeah, no, they're building this as two big men who both have too much pride, I guess, and want to fight each other. So a big old.
Why don't they just have a Ziggler throwing contest?
Yeah, they could. Yeah, that would be more entertaining than the schmoz they had. and that was basically about it.
So yeah, I mean, here's the deal. They also, and sadly, they didn't address. And I hope this isn't just well, we'll just sweep it under the rug. We made a mistake.
Yeah, I mean, they basically spent the entire night not talking about it.
Yeah, you definitely want to see a moment where you don't have something. It almost feels like, with the exception of the women's division, they ignored last night, and so I hope that they didn't end up just ignoring last night.
They did a package at one point about the match.
Well, they had the Shorty G stuff too, which was a recognition of the night before.
Yeah, but for the most part, it was kind of a
Natty and Lacey. I suppose they kind of addressed.
They addressed the events of the night before. They just glossed over the final match as much as they could and tried to ignore it.
But they didn't address most of the rest of the night in terms of building feuds or anything like that, which I guess they had to fill till the draft.
Yeah, and that's really, they set the night up as a showcase. You know, this is where you can show off. So for the people to draft you next week, you know, and
Paul Cruz.
Yeah, and the whole thing, they made a big deal about how champions don't necessarily stay on their show, and that tag teams can be drafted separately. So it'll be interesting. It'd be really funny if, after building up the Viking Warriors, they split them up next week. And then tonight, yeah, it'd be funny in the same way the Hell in a Cell match was funny.
Fair enough.
And then tonight was the debut episode of AEW Dark, which was the new show that they just announced last week, where they take the Dark matches from Dynamite taping and they put them up. It's kind of presented like main event sort of a thing, where you've got Tony Schiavone standing in the control room talking about the matches that are kind of come up and kind of setting them up, and then they show the match and then they go back to him and he talks a little bit more about it. But it's interesting because it means now when you go to a AEW Dynamite taping, you actually technically get to see two shows all at once. And I think it's actually kind of brilliant because it allows your wrestlers to potentially work alternating weeks. Not all of them, but a lot of them could be there for one night of Dynamite taping. And, you know, whether they're on Dynamite or on AEW Dark, then the next week they don't necessarily have to be there because they were already on one of the previous two shows, which allows them to showcase some other people, which is really nice. But they did specifically state that these are canon. These count towards their win-loss records. And they've shown that tag matches count towards the win-loss record of both people, right? So, like the Young Bucks have a win-loss record individually that's the same as their current tag record because all of their matches have been tag matches, but it's kind of interesting there. So, like Darby Allin, who previously had a tie against Cody, but then he also appeared in a couple multi-man matches and he lost those. So technically he's got, I think it's an 0-2 and 1 tie record right now. But he started off in the dark match against Shima, which was an absolute banger of a match. And Darby Allin won with his coffin drop. So he finally actually connected with a coffin drop and got the 1-2-3 pin. So Darby Allin now is the winner of that match and now has a win on his record, which does go into setting up for a future match. So that's kind of cool there. Then you had the newly named The Hybrid 2, Angelico and Jack Evans, and the Lucha Brothers versus Private Party and the Best Friends, with Orange Cassidy standing on the outside, mostly looking bored. So, and that was actually a pretty fun match all in all. And it did feature a time when all of the other people were outside of the ring. And
that feels like spoilers right now.
Well,
because I haven't seen it, but
should have watched it. Orange Cassidy out there. It doesn't directly interfere, but like the Best Friends and Angelico and Evans are out there, and Angelico and Evans go to attack the Best Friends, and Orange Cassidy gets in the middle and stops them, and then puts his hands in his pockets, and it's just kind of a fun little moment. And then he eventually climbs up to the top rope and does a suicide dive onto the group of them with his hands in his pockets, which takes a whole lot of...
I love that character.
You know,
I just
think
I love how athletic that laziness is.
Yeah. Well, how much trust that takes for those people to catch you. Like, you do a suicide dive out to the outside, you've got your hands out. If those people don't catch you, you've at least got something you can try to throw in front of your face to catch you. You know what I mean? But your hands are in your pockets, right? If those people don't catch you, you rock bottom onto the pavement, right? So,
and potentially straight on your head. I mean, I think he's got the athleticism to do a tuck and roll type thing, but yeah, I get what you're saying.
And the Lucha Brothers pin Trent and get the win, and so they've now got another win under their belts. And then you had Dr. Britt Baker and Allie versus Penelope Ford and Bea Priestley. And, you know, we previously had seen all of these people in multi-man matches earlier, but this was nice to see them in a tag match, kind of featuring them both. And Bea Priestley and Britt Baker's feud continued in this match. And it was nice to see Penelope Ford because we really haven't seen a ton of her in AEW. So, but it was a pretty good match all in all. And Britt Baker...
Excited to watch that. Was any involvement against Allie there? Anybody interfere?
Nope. They didn't have really any interference there.
Damn. Okay, go on.
But it was a pretty good match in the end. And then the final match was the one they teased before Dynamite last week of SCU versus the Jurassic Express, including Marco Stunt, the whole team. So it was a 6-man tag. And it was a fun back and forth that ended with SCU winning, which means the Jurassic Express still don't have a win as a group under their belts, but they're still more over than pretty much any other team out there.
Yeah.
So,
including the brothers Spot Monkeys.
Mm-hmm. But it was just a fun show to have, you know, a great way for them to feature some more of their talent. They're doing it on YouTube, which means it's way easier for people to get to and get to see it. So they have an interesting match based on the events of that for Dynamite going live tomorrow, Jimmy Havoc versus Darby Allin in a number one contenders match for who faces Chris Jericho next week in Philadelphia. So Darby Allin picking up that win.
How does that make wins and losses matter?
Cody has actually said that its quality of match also matters. And
those two have put on some bangers, that's for sure.
Yeah. And so even though their win-loss record isn't as good, Darby Allin's quality of match has been up there. That, in a way, is a little bit of a cop-out because they don't necessarily have that in most other sports. I mean, college football, they do it in terms of the playoff. They have quality of match record, but, you know, they say...
style points matter there.
Yeah, I guess. But so, Cody Rhodes said, quality of wins plays a factor, not unlike college football. Jimmy beat two other major players in the Cracker Barrel clash, and Darby went the distance with me and defeated SEMA. So that's what their argument is there.
Oh, so if you go the distance with Cody, that's like a win.
Yeah, apparently. I mean, he is the boss, so I guess.
Yeah.
But so what that really means is, and I know this isn't going to happen, they're going to keep the belt on Jericho. But how badass would it be if it was either Jimmy Havoc or Darby Allin who had the second going into Full Gear? That could be pretty BA. Yeah. So, but so I think that's all we really have for today. It was a fun episode. I'm using air quotes around fun because someone had me book a werewolf. But it was a fun episode. And it's going to be a fun week. You know, we had Raw, and there were some fun moments to it, despite the absolute clunker. They really need to stop this stupid Bobby Lashley, Lana thing, but they're obviously not. Paul Heyman is all in on that, so.
Yeah. I was over that when it started.
Yes.
I was over that when it was Maria and Mike Kanellis. So I'm over it now that you've got quality wrestlers as part of it, you know. I mean, Mike's kind of been buried for a while, but that's okay. I would say there's just no way to make that good. Just some storylines just need to end like Fake Kane did.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So.
But that does it for another episode of A Visit from the FBI.
We've talked a little bit about some new podcasts. Is there any I should maybe listen to that we've recently?
Oh, well, funny you should mention that. I recently came across a new podcast. It's called The Fabulous. What's it called? The Fabulous Heel Nerds, because it's a play on the Fabulous Freebirds. The Fabulous Heel Nerds. A couple British guys. They're pretty hilarious. They go through. It started off, they were doing a lot of not backstage, but like older episodes. Like the first episode they had, they did a review of. It's the one that almost everyone does. A review of Bash at the Beach '96. The episode that changed wrestling for the whole universe. And so it was a fun little episode. Them talking about the backstage stuff that's happening at it and all of that stuff, and they're going through, kind of starting from scratch there. But they're a fun group. Couple people doing this podcast, and it's really entertaining to listen to. So if you have a chance to catch them, I would highly recommend it. The Fabulous Heel Nerds, you can find them on pretty much wherever you listen to your podcasts. You can listen to them give their boozy, opinionated stroll through wrestling history. So they sometimes get a little tipsy before drinking and or before recording and have some fun with it. But it's a fun podcast to listen to. And you know me, I'm a sucker for British accents, anyways. So
any of their accents as good as Ollie?
One of them reminds me a lot of Andy Datson, actually. His voice reminds me a lot of that. And I'm still in my mind trying to pick out which voice is which. I'm only about 3 episodes into it right now. 10 hours in the patrol car gives me a lot of time to listen to podcasts, but I've got a lot of podcasts already listened to, so
yay.
So yeah, go ahead, Google, Apple podcast, whatever you want to do, Spotify.
Thank you.
Yeah, you can
Spotify
check them out.
Me,
the Fabulous Heel Nerds.
Sounds cool. I will try that probably at the same time. So, blessing that I have YouTube TV as my way of watching television. Downside is now I have 24 hours or 48 hours to listen to or to watch Raw, AEW Dark, and all of AEW's Wednesday Night Dynamite. So I'm kind of excited to see how my next few days is going to go while I'm trying to crush those in. And I'm more excited for the review shows because as much as I've loved review shows thus far, whether it be 83 Weeks or What Happened When or any of the others that Conrad does, it's kind of nice to see some of these little guys do these review shows, like you and I, but we don't do much review other than just individual things. So it'll be kind of exciting to see how they reviewed it in comparison to, I don't know, say Eric Bischoff reviewed the show that he produced.
Yeah.
At Bash on the Beach.
One of my favorite things to do right now with podcasts, I absolutely love doing this, is I hold off on listening to their preview and their review of a pay-per-view until after the pay-per-view is aired. So then after it's aired, I listen to their preview and I see how wrong they are on lots of things. And I just enjoy driving along and thinking, oh, if only it went the way you thought it was going to go. Just kind of fun to do.
Well, yeah, that'd be really fun considering how not the way we thought it was going to go on so many things.
It's just kind of fun to listen, like the previous ones for Hell in a Cell, where people are like, yeah, so expect the Fiends to win in a glorified squash match, and it should be awesome. And I go, oh, how naive and wonderful that time was when we thought so. How great.
I'm dreaming of a better Fiend storyline. That was my it's coming. It's coming. Christmas match.
Nope. I'm going to beat you to the punch. That's next week, buddy.
In October.
But that should do us for today. As always, like, follow, share, subscribe. Give us 5-star reviews on iTunes because it helps us get into the ear holes of more people.
Talk with your coworkers about it sometimes, It's interesting. I've had the pleasure of having some conversations with my coworkers at the courthouse numerous times about the podcast and just about the crimes and how we're going to actually prosecute them and whatnot. So it works out really awesome.
Mm-hmm. And then, as I always say, follow us on Twitter. You can also follow us. We have a page on Facebook. It's Raw and Order WBU, so you can go there. New episode announcements and other things are posted at both Twitter and Facebook, so you can view it there. But share it with your friends and subscribe on whatever podcast platform you use. It makes us feel really good to see those listener stats go up and up and up as more people hear us. Also, we've done a lot to get the sound quality better. We shouldn't have the robot voice anymore. Everything should sound a whole lot better. But all the sound improvements don't exactly come free. So listening, of course, helps us. We've got our sponsor segment in the middle. But it also helps us. You can go to anchor.fm and you can click that little support button. And it's like Patreon. You can throw us a little scratch each month to help us improve this podcast, make it better. However,
you guys in Maine.
Yeah, you guys in Maine, or I can't remember where there was some people in Iowa. Come on, Iowans, throw us some money.
The fellow attorneys that I have that listen in Michigan.
Yeah, come on, Michigan.
Throw us a little love.
Yeah, you got some scratch in that pocket. Throw us this way. But as always, like, share, subscribe, follow us on Twitter. I am at Raw and Order WBU, and DA Fabe is
at DAIMK Fabe. We record this on video, and I love watching you smile because you know that I have to say at Dame Fabe.
Dame K-Fabe.
It's not K-A-Y, it's just K.
Just K.
So, yeah, like Vincent McMahon's middle name. Something. Yep. Anyway. Or middle initial, not middle name. It's Kennedy for his middle name. So.
But that
really
should
need to make the main roster.
Yes. So you can get your new name. We can drop some of those names and change it. You can be like Bobby Lashley, who just becomes Lashley, or Apollo Crews, who just became Apollo and then was Apollo Crews again, or Ali
to be Rick.
Yeah, or Shay.
Or Shay. Or
I'm just waiting for Aleister Black to just become
champion. Just become Black. Or that 16-time world champion, John. That's it. Just John.
Just John.
I can't see the rest of his name.
I can't see his first name, so that's better than me. But that'll do us for the Fantasy Booking Institute. Cases closed.